Agitorium nostrum in nomine Domini. All right, we're going to begin a new encyclical, Humanum Genus, on Freemasonry by
Pope Leo XIII.
Written when?
April 20th, 1884.
Yes, so it's a short encyclical, as you see. It's interesting that at the very end he draws as one of the remedies against Freemasonry is the third order of St. Francis, the spirit of poverty and prayer and detachment from this world. So let's get into this. It's a very powerful encyclical, and it's one of a long line of popes who condemned Freemasonry, one after the other. And it's very telling that Pope Paul VI, according to Father Luigi Villa, he had very close connections with Freemasonry. And I think the tomb of his mother and father also had Masonic symbols. So Pope Paul VI, it's clear he was a Mason in his thinking. He was double-faced, as Archbishop Lefebvre said. He was like a double character, which true liberals are. They're self-contradictory. And then he allowed the other Freemason, Archbishop Bonini, to run free in the Vatican and change Holy Week, change the liturgy, change the Mass. And he was a Freemason. So they got their goal, which was to overthrow the Catholic Mass. So, and then it's also telling that in the new Code of Canon Law, the new Code of 1983, is there any excommunication for Catholics joining Freemasonry?
No.
They lifted it, which is also, what could be more telling than that? It's just obvious. But the excommunication still holds, obviously, by force of the real canon law of the Church, which is the 1917 Code of Pope Pius X and Pope Benedict the 15th. So the Church has always forbidden Catholics to join Freemasonry. It has always been condemned. And only with Vatican II did they open the arms to Freemasonry. And that says everything, doesn't it? Because one of the goals of Freemasonry is to silence the opposition. That's why Pope Benedict XVI succeeded to silence so many traditional groups who were speaking loud against Vatican II in the new Mass. And one by one, he got them to sign agreements, or at least to concede to canonical structure and receive favors from modernist Rome. And because they get their little favors for their little congregation and they're allowed to say their little Latin Mass, they become silent. If not by order, then by peer pressure. As Father de Coqueret said in one of his writings, he said in France, I think it was in Toulouse, I could be corrected of the city, but there was a Society of St. Pius X chapel, and they had a flood, and there was a water damage in the chapel. So the local bishop allowed the society priests to use one of their Catholic churches. A very kind gesture indeed, right? Father de Coqueret, who was later to become the district superior of France, and he was a good one. And he also left the new SSPX at the revolution of 2012. He also left, but he didn't stay out on the battlefield with us. He went into the Carthusians in France. So he's been there ever since, a humble monk. And they put out some studies also refuting the new SSPX dancing with modernist Rome. But he says, when I was preaching in this church, here I am we're using a church borrowed and by the kindness of the local diocesan bishop. He says, in my preaching, I could feel the pressure to not condemn everything that bishop stood for, which was Vatican II and the new Mass. So he didn't get any order. You can't preach against Vatican II. You can't preach against the new Mass. He didn't get anything like that. But he just felt the pressure. And he says, this alone told me we cannot put ourselves to work with these modernists. And Archbishop Lefebvre warned about that too, right? So one of the signs of Freemasonry is the silence against error and heresy. The silence of preaching the truth. And that's why the silencing of the SSPX, there's something Freemasonic about it. Definitely something Freemasonic about it. I don't know who, what names, I don't know. Certainly there are infiltrators. And then the silencing of the fake resistance. That was all something Freemasonic about it. These bishops are not preaching publicly. They are not writing public letters to the friends and benefactors, at least that I'm aware of. And if I'm wrong, I would be happy to be proven wrong. Believe me. The only one I know of who's speaking a little loudly is Bishop Bellini. And he has some website where his sermons are, so that's something at least. And let's hope he continues. Another one that we hear once in a while is Bishop Thomas Aquinas, who's the prior of the monastery of the Benedictine Santa Cruz in Brazil. Once in a while he puts out still some good letters, and that's good. And he knew better than caving in on the new Mass gives grace, new Mass nourishes your faith, and the new Mass miracles. He grew absolutely silent about that. And he knew better, because he stood up against Dom Gerard, who made the compromise with Rome in 1988 with the Benedictines, remember? Well, you wouldn't remember, but you must have heard about it. And then, secondly, he stood up to Bishop Fallet's compromise. And then he stood up, but he caved in with Bishop Williamson's compromise. That's when he became silent, which was very unfortunate. But he's a good bishop, and he's a good hardened monk, and at least he still writes something. So let's pray for him to come back to his former positions. And then other than that, Bishop Zadeas, nobody hears him, unless you're there at his Mass. But there's no release of sermons or catechisms that I'm aware of, and no letters either. There used to be, but when people found modernism in his letters, he stopped writing them. So, question mark. And then the other bishops of Bishop Williamson, they're all, well, I haven't heard them. One talk of Father Bishop Morgan in French, where he's just saying, I'm a spare wheel. Bishop IV, I can understand he's tied up with the seminary. That's a big job, and that's a lot. It's very time consuming. So maybe he doesn't have much time. But anyway, just remember this, gentlemen. If you're bishops, you'll go to hell if you don't preach the faith publicly. Is that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
If you become bishops, you have a duty to preach the faith by letter, word, sermons, catechisms. That's the first duty of a bishop. If you don't do that, you will be in hell. Is that clear? Don't forget that if you become bishops, which I don't wish on anyone. But anyway. No, St. Paul says, a bishop must be virtuous, etc. And it's good when we have good bishops. It's a blessing for the church. But silence is always, there's something always Masonic about it. When they're silent about the truth and the faith and against errors, there's always the tail of the devil of Freemasonry. Always. Always, always, always. And we're going to see why. April 20th, 1884, to our venerable brethren, all patriarchs, primates, archbishops, and bishops of the Catholic world, in grace and communion with the Apostolic See, venerable brethren, health and apostolic benediction. 1, Now this is a powerful kickoff paragraph. You ready for this? The race of man, after its miserable fall from God, the Creator and the giver of heavenly gifts, through the envy of the devil, separated into two diverse and opposite parts. So the human race split in two, in other words, of which the one steadfastly contends for truth and virtue, the other for those things which are contrary to virtue and to truth. So you got two what? Two camps. One professing truth, the other despising and fighting against it. So two clear camps. The one is the kingdom of God on earth, namely the true church of Jesus Christ, and those who desire from their heart to be united with it, so as to gain salvation, must of necessity serve God and his only begotten Son, with their whole mind and with an entire will. The other camp, the other, is the kingdom of Satan, in whose possession and control are all whosoever follow the fatal example of their leader and of our first parents, those who refuse to obey the divine and eternal law, and who have many aims of their own in contempt of God, and many aims also against God. So right off the bat, Pope Leo XIII says, since the fall of Adam and Eve, there are two camps. And this was already expressed in Genesis 3:15, when God says to the serpent, there will be enmity, I will set enmity between thee and the woman, talking to the serpent. And dirt will be your food, and you will lie in wait for her heel, and she shall crush thy head. So right off the bat, God warns of the two camps, those who will follow the serpent and those who follow Our Lady. Those who do battle under the banner of Our Lady, those who do a battle under the tail and the venomous fangs of the serpent. So it's very interesting that often in pagan cultures, you will often find the symbol of the serpent. On the pyramids in Mexico, where they slaughtered thousands and thousands of Aztecs or other Indian tribes, they all had serpent symbols everywhere on the knives, on the pyramids, serpents and skulls. Paragraph 2. Loud and clear, Gavril.
This twofold kingdom St. Augustine keenly discerned and described after the manner of two cities, contrary in their laws, because striving for contrary objects, and with a subtle brevity he expressed the efficient cause of each in these words: two loves form two cities, the love of self reaching even to contempt of God, an earthly city, and the love of God reach into contempt of self, a heavenly one.
Okay, so what are the two cities?
The two cities are love of self and love of God.
Yes, and St. Augustine will give them a name also. The city of Satan he'll call Babylon, from Babel, which means confusion, and Jerusalem, the heavenly Jerusalem, which is the Catholic Church on earth and the Church triumphant in heaven. So these two cities are at war, and will there ever be peace between them?
No.
Never. And the city of Satan wants to destroy the Catholic city. And they think they'll succeed, but they won't. Go on.
At every period of time, each has been in conflict with the other, with a variety and multiplicity of weapons and of warfare, although not always with equal ardor and assault. At this period, however, the partisans of evil seem to be combining together, and to be struggling with united vehemence, led on or assisted by the strongly organized and widespread association called the Freemasons.
Okay, so the Pope is saying here, the powers of hell waging war against the Catholic Church and the children of light are now combining their efforts with a special force, and it's called Freemasonry. And this is late 1800s, so it's about this time under Pius IX, the previous Pope, to Leo XIII, where he exposes the Alta Vendita, exposes the secret plots of the Masons to destroy the woman, get her out of the home, get her to wear pants, turn her to be more masculine. And it turns out that that airplane, Delta, that crashed in Toronto, Delta was all proud about having unmanned airplanes, meaning no men on the flights, running the flights, no pilots and no stewards. So they haven't revealed who the pilots were. But on their websites, they're all big about, this whole DEI, diversity, equality, and whatever the I means. So in other words, allowing all the LGBTQ and all this garbage. So it's very likely that the plane crashed, all run by women, which would be very not surprising. Not surprising at all. So all this, and same with the LA fires, they were run by women. So women don't belong in men's domains, period. Oh, you're male chauvinist. Oh, you're this and that. Well, too bad. God made men and women different. That's just the way it is. Men can't have children, but women can. And that's something far superior than anything man can do. But women cannot and should not be on the wrestling mats, in the hockey rinks, in the football fields, in the construction sites, nor in the military, at least not on the front lines and in the fighting forces. In the military, they can help with cooking, they can help with, their proper place would be with the nursing and the medical field, and maybe transportation of ammo, but not on the front lines. It's not their place, period. But you say that today, and no, you're a male chauvinist, and you're against women. Well, look at Our Lady. Whatever you can picture Our Lady doing, that's proper for a woman. Whatever you cannot picture her doing, they shouldn't be doing. Anyway, so the Freemasons, they came out in the Alta Vendita, and Archbishop Lefebvre brings this out, and they have uncrowned him. What else do they want to overthrow? They're going to infiltrate the Catholic Church. They're going to overthrow the Mass, the sacraments, the priesthood, and even get to the highest ranks. We want a Pope who may not be a Freemason itself, but who will promote our what?
Ideas.
Our ideas. And they've had 5 popes promoting their ideas. John the 23rd, Pope Paul the 6th. John Paul I didn't have much of a chance. They murdered him after 30 days. But I don't think he was a big traditional pope either, because he took he took the name of John the 23rd and Paul the 6th, which shows that he admired them and would have kept their line of destruction. So I don't think he was a big anti-modernist, but maybe he would have, the word is, he was going to clean out the bank. He was going to clean out the bank corruption in the Vatican, whatever. So Masonic, the Freemasonic grip would have been partly cleaned out. And then he didn't last long. And then Pope John Paul II totally was for Masonic ideas. And then Benedict XVI, of course. And now Pope Francis, who's nearing his deathbed, poor soul. But all these popes have have been in the grip either as members of Freemasonry, God knows, but certainly promoted their ideas. Okay, read on. No longer
making any secret of their purpose, they are now boldly rising up against God himself. They are planning the destruction of Holy Church publicly and openly. And this with the set purpose of utterly despoiling the nations of Christendom. If it were possible, of the blessings obtained for us through Jesus Christ our Savior, lamenting these evils, we are constrained by the charity which urges our heart to cry out often to God. For lo, thy enemies have made a noise, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. They have taken a malicious counsel against thy people, and they have consulted against thy saints. They have said, come and let us destroy them, so that they be not a nation.
Okay, wow, this is more true than we even realize. Come, let us destroy them, so that they may not be not a nation. So one, yes, they think they have nearly destroyed the Catholic Church, except for these pain-in-the-neck traditional Catholics everywhere who want their the Latin Mass, especially the ones who don't want compromise with Vatican II and the No Mass. These ones we have to destroy. But they won't succeed. And then they want to destroy the nations. They want Europe to be inundated by all these foreigners, mostly Muslims. And now, at the rate there are more foreigners in England, France, Holland, Belgium. There's varying degrees in Spain as well, so that in about 20, 30 years they're going to be so outnumbered. There won't be so many French people anymore, nor many Quebec people up there, and English people. They're all being inundated. And that's the Masonic plot. Destroy that they be not a nation. Destroy the nations. Destroy France as France, England as England. They want this. They want this. And that's why Trump, knowingly or unknowingly, may be a thorn in their side, because he's not bowing down to their plans. At least it appears that way. It appears that way. So I may be completely wrong. All right, 3. Go ahead, Guadalupe.
At so urgent a crisis, when so fierce and so pressing an onslaught is made upon the Christian name, it is our office to point out the danger, to mark who are the adversaries, and to the best of our power to make head against their plans and devices, that those may not perish whose salvation is committed to us, and that the kingdom of Jesus Christ entrusted to our charge may not only stand and remain whole, but may be enlarged by an ever-increasing growth throughout the world.
Yes, so the Pope is calling the Catholics to what? To make head against their plans and devices. What's that mean?
To make war.
Yes, make war against these Freemasons. Now, I have here another translation, which might be even better. And so urgent a crisis, when so fierce and so pressing an onslaught is made upon the Christian name, it is our office to point out the danger, to mark who are the adversaries, and to the best of our power to make head against their plans and devices. So it looks like it's the same translation. That's good. That's good. Okay, so the Pope is calling Catholics, we got to go to war. Because the devil is his army and his lines are forming, we got to form the church's lines. The ranks, the flanks to do battle. So notice the language of the church is not, we have to embrace the world, we have to get with the world, and we have to aggiornamento, we have to be updated to reach the modern man. This is not the language of these popes of tradition. The language is, these are the enemies of Christ, and we must make war against them to save souls, so that the sheep do not be slaughtered and deceived by the enemy. Number 4, paragraph 4, Gavril.
The Roman pontiffs are predecessors, and their incessant watchfulness over the safety of the Christian people.
What's that mean? Incessant watchfulness? Incessant?
They're continuous.
Yeah, never stopping, never ending watchfulness. So the good popes are always watchful over the faith and over the safety of the Christian people. Go on.
We're prompt in detecting the presence and the purpose of this capital enemy immediately. It sprang into the light. Instead of hiding as a dark conspiracy, and moreover they took occasion with true foresight to give, as it were, the alarm, and to admonish that both princes and nations to stand on their guard, and not allow themselves to be caught by the devices and snares laid out to deceive them.
Yeah, so the Pope here is saying they're not hiding in the dark anymore, in the dark conspiracy. Their conspiracy is now known, it's public. They admit they want to destroy the church, infiltrate it. So princes and nations, be on guard. The problem is, none of them listen to the Pope. None of them listen to him. They took him too lightly. Oh, Freemasonry. The Pope talking about conspiracy. This is extreme. Well, it's not. And look at the damage they've done so far. The new Mass, Vatican II, the changing of the Code of Canon Law, lifting of the Freemasonic excommunication. These are all huge successes for the devil through Freemasonry. 5. The first warnings of the danger was given by Pope Clement XII in the year 1739. So here he's going through the list of popes that have condemned Freemasonry. And his constitution was confirmed and renewed by Benedict XIV. Pius VII followed the same path, and Leo XII, by his apostolic constitution Quo Graviora, put together the acts and decrees of former pontiffs on this subject, and ratified and confirmed them forever. In the same sense spoke Pius VIII, Gregory XVI, and many times over, Pius the... Yes, so there's a whole tradition of these good popes hammering the snakes of the Freemasonry. So no peace with these lodges. No peace with them. So it's very telling that, almost every town you drive through in the United States, there's all these Masonic lodges and temples and symbols. It's very telling, isn't it? Who runs the show over here? 6. Guadalupe?
For as soon as the constitution and the spirit of the Masonic sect were clearly discovered by manifest signs of its actions, by cases investigated, by the publication of its laws, and by its rites and commentaries, with the addition often of the personal testimony of those who were in the secret, this apostolic see denounced the sect of the Freemasons, and publicly declared its constitution as contrary to law and right, to be pernicious no less to Christendom than to the state, and forbade any one to enter the society, under the penalties which the Church is wont to inflict upon exceptionally guilty persons.
All right, hold on. So I remember Bishop Williamson saying that there was in London, I don't remember his name, someone who was a Freemason, revealed their secrets, and he was found hanging off a bridge, slit from ear to ear. So the Masons warn their members, you're under secrecy. If you reveal any of these secrets, you'll be found murdered. And Bishop Williamson also told the story in Italy of one high-up Freemason who wanted to get out of it because he was Catholic. But he wanted his son also to get out of it. So they said, yeah, your son can leave Freemasonry. Just come next Saturday and we'll arrange it. So he came and he went into the lodge, and they told him, see that painting of Christ? A huge life-size painting of Jesus Christ. And they said, shoot the image and we'll let you go. Your son can be freed from Freemasonry. And it didn't sit well with him because, no Catholic is going to shoot a painting of Christ. But the poor soul compromised. He gave in and he shot the painting. And crashing through the painting came the wrapped up dead body of his son. So that's how they work. That's how they are. And everything's done with secrecy. So if you reveal the secrets, you'll be punished. The Bishop Williamson alluded to the words, cross my heart, hope to die, stick a needle in my eye. Those kind of phrases are from Masonic practice. That if you break their secrets, you're going to suffer. So AA 1025, right, he had to be careful about not revealing what he was about. So, okay, so the church forbids anyone to enter that society. Go on. The bottom of page 5.
The sectaries, indignant at this, seeking to elude or to weaken the force of these decrees, partly by contempt of them and partly by calumny, accused the supreme pontiffs who had passed them either of exceeding the bounds of moderation in their decrees or of decreeing what was not just.
Yeah, so the popes are being hot-headed, they're excessive, they're seeing Freemasons under every blanket and in every street corner. So they're exaggerating, the Pope's taking them serious. But read on.
This was the manner in which they endeavored to elude the authority and the weight of the apostolic constitutions of Clement XII and Benedict XIV, as well as of Pius VII and Pius IX. Yet in the very society itself there were to be found men who unwillingly acknowledged that the Roman pontiffs had acted within their right, according to the Catholic doctrine and discipline. The pontiffs received the same assent, and in strong terms, from many princes and heads of governments, who made it their business either to delate the Masonic society to the Apostolic See, or of their own accord by special enactments to brand it as pernicious, as for example, in Holland, Austria, Switzerland, Spain, Bavaria, Savoy, and other parts of Italy.
Bavaria, that's southern Germany, which is the Catholic part of Germany. So yes, so some princes were warning people against Freemasonry, but most of them didn't listen to the popes. 7, Gavril.
But what is of highest importance, the course of events has demonstrated the prudence of our predecessors. Through their provident and paternal solicitude, had not always and everywhere the result desired, and this either because of the simulation and cunning of some who were active agents in the mischief, or else of the thoughtless levity of the rest who ought in their own interests to have given to the matter their diligent attention. In consequence, the sect of Freemasons grew with a rapidity beyond conception in the course of a century and a half, until it came to be able, by means of fraud or of audacity, to gain such entrance into every rank of the state as to seem to be almost in its ruling power.
Okay, hold on. So he's saying in the past over 100 years, Freemasonry spread, grew, and we could say it became like a custom. It became the in thing, the cool thing to do for a lot of men, especially if they weren't Catholic, was to be a Freemason. And then being a Freemason, you're in touch with all the big businesses in town, all the big bankers, all the big business owners. So you're friends with them at the lodge, they're going to help you in your business. So financially it helps all the brothers of the Masonic Lodge. And if you're not a member, and especially if you're Catholic, oh well, don't do business with them. Don't give them any grants, don't help them. So there's a worldly gain, which is always one of the hooks of the devil. You give him, your 20 cents, give him your soul even, and he'll give you a lot in this world. And that's one of the attractive elements of Freemasonry, is the worldly gain that they promise. So a lot of people get deceived by that. So that's why the popes were blowing the trumpet. Stay away, get out of them, be aware of them, make war against the Freemasons. Watch them in the governments, watch them in the schools, watch them in, where he didn't expect, in the sacristies. So Mozart wrote a whole piece, what's the name of it, for Freemasons. It was full of Masonic symbolism. What is it? The flute? What's the piece that he wrote was really filled with Masonic symbols?
I haven't heard that one yet.
I forget what it's called. But anyway, it's very likely he became one just because it was fashionable. And then Thomas Jefferson, of course, Ben Franklin, all the founding fathers of the Masonic Republic here were mostly Freemasons. George Washington, he was a Mason, he was a head Mason. And he wore his apron and he writes letters to his brethren. If you go to Mount Vernon where he died and lived, they tell you the Masonic brothers surrounded his bed to make sure no priest comes to him. So there's a little legend that a priest made it to George Washington and he died converted. I hope for his sake that's true, but it's not likely, short of a miracle, because the Masons surround the bed. And he was a high up Mason, George Washington, and he received the key of the Bastille from the head bigwigs, Freemasons in France, who started the French Revolution. They were all buddies. So the French Revolution and the American Revolution were actually the same revolution, built on the same Masonic principles. The only difference is in France it was bloody because they had to take the chainsaw and cut down the Catholic tree and cut off the head of the Catholic monarch, literally. So there was bloodshed and martyrs and priests and nuns put to death by the hundreds and thousands, right? But over here, this America was just wild Indian territory. So there was no Catholic political structure. There was no Catholic society to take down. So that's why there was no major bloodshed over here. But in France it was, because they were cutting down, overthrowing the whole Catholic social order. So that was 1789, and the Pope is writing this in almost 100 years after the French Revolution. And he's saying, look, they've grown, they're becoming a conspiracy, they're no longer hiding their plan, watch out. They're blowing the trumpets, the Catholic trumpet. All right, so remember, it was fashionable also to be a Freemason. So in a lot of these New England cemeteries, you see Freemasonic symbolism, even on women's tombs. So they might not, as he's going to tell you in this encyclical, there's levels of Freemasonry. There's the real evil guys on top who are given to Satan. Then there's the ones that are pretty bad, but they're not Satanists as such. Then there's the masks, the do-gooders, the Rotary Club, the Oddfellow guys. These are the masks that make it look good, such as the Shriners with their hospital work for children. It makes them look good. These are the smiling faces to hide the evil evil work of the lodges at the higher levels. Okay, so keep track here and we'll pick up tomorrow. Adjutorium nostrum in nomine Domini.
Rachel,